Kava was banned in Europe, in Germany first, and the other countries followed suit, because you have to apply a risk-benefit analysis to all these things. And even though it's a great anxiolytic, the authorities could not live with a potential hepatotoxicity from over-the-counter medication.
Right. Yes.
And the TGA follows suit as well. And I think I was meant to look it up, but I think it was around 2002. Yep. As I said, there were some restrictions earlier, but there was a complete ban on Kava and it was withdrawn. And there were some concerns about, exactly what were they near toxic compounds, and they have not found specific hepatotoxic compounds in the normal Kava.
Hello and welcome. Mentoring with Geraldine is a bite-sized practitioner podcast for naturopaths, nutritionists, herbalists, and practitioners. This podcast responds directly to your needs, the needs of the practicing natural therapist. With interviews, herbal discussions, something business and something clinical each week, you'll get the variety you need and enjoy to stay motivated in practice. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mentoring with Geraldine and the Bite Size Podcast. And I've got an amazing guest with me today. So real nerd crush. Thank you, Michael Thompson, for coming on and speaking to us today. So Michael is an author. And for those of you watching on YouTube, you can't see it on podcast, I know, but I'm showing you the two books. I've got his old one here, right hand. And I did actually wipe the tea stains off the front. And this is the new desk reference that he's created. And he's a naturopath and herbalist. And he's based in Hobart in Tasmania. And he's been in practice for the last 35 years, which is so cool. So Michael has very kindly given up his time to come and chat to us. And we're going to go through some of the herbs and some different things that we don't really talk about, that, stuff that happened perhaps before any of you thought about becoming herbalists or naturopaths. So the Kava, what's going on with Kava? That's a really interesting one. And Siberian ginseng, and otherwise known as erythro, and hypericum. So we've got it's got some goodies that we're going to chat about today. So thank you, Michael, for joining us. And wow, we're so lucky.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me. So let's talk about Kava, because yes, the Kava ban actually happened about 20 years ago. There were some initial problems in Australia because Kava was often abused in some Aboriginal communities, especially when they mixed it with alcohol. So the TGA was already quite concerned about that, and there were some restrictions. I don't know much about the drug interaction. The alcohol Kava interaction, but I think it produced some mental, emotional kind of instabilities in people, and also there was a skin disorder that was described in the 90s in some Aboriginal communities, related possibly to that interaction between alcohol and Kava. So Kava was always, I guess it's because it was in Northern Territory and also Western Australia mostly, maybe some direct trade with some, Polynesian or Micronesian islands. And so Kava has been known in Australia for a very long time, and the TGA was concerned about that. And that there were some restrictions in some of those communities. But I think it was around 2002, thereabouts, that there were some reports coming out in Europe with Kava use and liver toxicities. And yes. I did work with a good friend of mine who's from Germany. He's a pharmacist, researcher, PhD in herbal medicine, and an established and recognized herbal expert in Europe to advise governments and work in registration of drugs, herbal drugs in Switzerland and Germany. And he and I did some articles a long time ago, both on black cohosh, because that also came out with liver toxicity of reports. And there was a series of those even reported in Australia, and none since. So we actually examined both of these cases, Kava and black cohosh, and found that none of them actually contain any toxic compounds. This is coming out of the literature around the same time. So you could not give any of those to mice and induce liver toxicity. So the thought, of course, is that there's some kind of autoimmune reaction that happens in some individuals. And but as a result, back to the Kava, Kava was banned in Europe, in Germany first, and the other countries followed suit, because you have to apply a risk-benefit analysis to all these things. And even though it's a great anxiolytic, the authorities could not live with, a potential hepatotoxicity from
Yes.
over-the-counter medication.
Right. Yes.
And the TGA followed suit as well. And I think I was meant to look it up, but I think it was around 2002.
Yep.
As I said, there were some restrictions earlier, but there was a complete ban on Kava and it was redrawn. And there were some concerns about, exactly what were they near toxic compounds, and they have not found specific hepatotoxic compounds in the normal Kava. So they kind of knew that there might have been some kind of reaction, but not what sort of reaction or what type of person might have those kind of reactions. So it was banned. There was also concerns, some efforts to find out, is it Kava? Is it happening in the Polynesian islands where they have more traditional ways of consuming it? For instance, it's a water-based extract. I think they chew it and milk and mix it with water and drink it as a herbal, a cold infusion, if you like. And so there were some concerns about, is it a particular source? Is it a particular variety? Is it the manufacturing? And they came down pretty strong on the manufacturing, that maybe some of the solvents used in herbal extracts, because these happened then to be dry extracts used in tablets and capsules and so on. So it wasn't traditional Kava drinks in Europe that caused the problems. And here, same, there were sort of commercial products that caused some of these, or that were maybe associated with liver failure in some patients here as well. Although it was a very poor reporting at the time, and a lot of cases actually duplicated and described in different ways, and there was it was poorly handled actually by all the authorities, and they rushed into this ban. As most people know, it's been partially lifted, but there were some restrictions. They thought perhaps we don't know what's causing it directly, so let's restrict the manufacturing. And so in Australia, there were only water-based extracts allowed, and also up to a tablet can contain, or dosage can contain up to 125 of the Kava lactones, the active compounds in Kava. And that, I think that's still in case. It's this situation. I'm not quite sure the solvents, whether it's still only water-based. Maybe something we can fact check. It came back some years later, and it did a lot of damage. And my good friend Matthias Schmidt over in Germany actually was working for the various Polynesian, or the Micronesian, Polynesian, I'm not quite sure. I think they got Micronesian, but Fiji and Vanuatu specifically, he worked for those governments to try and to reinstate Kava as a supply across the world, because it was a really important business for the country and for the farmers. And it was a very sad thing, because it turned out that a German company had actually gone to, I think it was Fiji, I'm not sure which one it was, which island, and bought a Kava culture, what do they call it? Cultivar that isn't the one that they normally use. So there are lots of different variations of Kava. It can be the same species, but slightly different cultivars. And this particular one's called a 2-day Kava by the locals. And the reason they call it the 2-day Kava is it gives you a terrific headache, the hangover type, that will last for at least 2 days.
Wow.
And that was what they used. And I don't know whether they were trying to be smart and get something specific so they could compete in the marketplace and say, oh, well, we're using this cultivar, and it gives us some edge over the other companies or whatever, And there were also concerns about acetone extracts, which is a solvent that's very good at extracting fat-soluble compounds like the Kava lactones. But it doesn't seem to be the case, because most of these solvents, if they are toxic like methanol, they're removed. Even the ethanol used is removed. So probably unlikely to be those, but that was a concern. But it's more likely to be that they were using the wrong cultivar, and also had so that's really disregard for traditional knowledge, because the local people would not use that particular cultivar. And there was also some concerns about using the peels of the root, because they peel the root before they extract it. And obviously somebody was selling off, tons of peels, and so it really is a big lesson about the companies doing the right thing, following tradition, apply some science so you get a consistent quality product, but listen to tradition. And I'll give you another example with Hypericum later on, where they didn't listen to tradition, and it caused all the problems. And so now, Matthias Schmidt actually took the German TGA, their local version of the TGA, to court and won a few years ago. and they had to admit that the ban was a very ill-considered step to take, and it caused a lot of damage to livelihoods in Micronesia. So really a very sad outcome, but regulating authorities like that do not want to admit anything, so they are fighting back, and there's still some kava bans in place. But really, if you stick to the proper, it's called noble, N-O-B-L-E, noble cultivar of kava, you do not have these problems. You do not have that long-term, not long-term, but serious hangover effect. 2 day, you get with the 2 day kava. And this is written up in the literature. It's freely available to learn about these things. So any of your listeners, it's a really fascinating story to look up kava, noble kava versus the 2 day kava. And companies here, I think, are across that. And I've had a bit to do with MediHerb in the past, and I know that they are very familiar with this and make a really good extract. So I used that one. I've also used, what's the other one I used? Anxioton, I forget which company it is, but never had any problems with those ones. And in the old days, we used to stock up quite well in these little tablets that MediHerb made in the very early days, and they were great. Yeah. And all herbal lecturers used to take them before giving a lecture, at a conference or whatever, and never had any problems with it. So yeah,
I do love their liquid, I've got to say.
It tastes horrible. I hate the taste, but it's.
I don't mind it actually. It's got that.
That's weird. You must be a real herbalist.
Yeah.
That tingling sort of funny thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the tingling on the tongue, and I know you've got that good one. It's like, oh yeah, this is going to hit the spot. I take it sometimes at bed at night time. It's like, I'm not going to sleep tonight. Have a little bit of kava. I'm like, oh yeah, it's hit the spot. And
you were not having trouble with that. And in fact, in some of those islands where they had some problems with the young men drinking alcohol, they also have kava bars. And when they get them off the alcohol into the kava bars, they all have a great time with all their mates, and they go home and go to sleep, and they don't beat up their wives back in the village. And it's documented research that the domestic violence gone down from doing that, and crime, because they just chill out in their kava bars rather than the alcohol. So so that's my little kava story.
Yeah, I was in Vanuatu a few years back, and we got kava from the kava bars, and they sell it in the 2-liter bottles, and so you have to take. So we didn't go to the kava bar.
Like takeaway.
So we did takeaway, and but they would take the 2-liter bottles and then bring it back, and then it was because it's not very nice because it's a water extract. So it's a powder water extract. So you're sort of chugging them back, but you're so relaxed at the end of it. I can totally get why taking, not bothering with the alcohol and going to a kava bar would support the whole family dynamic. Because we were all women there, and enjoying kava, but relaxed and chill. One of them couldn't. One of them hated it so much she couldn't drink it, but everybody else was just so relaxed on the kava.
Well, the research shows us less violence basically from switching from alcohol to kava.
Totally.
So, and I think I this is lost on the regulators. So I know that kava is still partially banned in the Northern Territory and WA. You can't bring in any kava. Other states I thought
it had been lifted in WA. They're allowed.
That's possible. Okay, because you can actually, if you were in Vanuatu and you wanted to bring some home, you can actually bring 4 kilos on you, but you can't import it. So you can't. Right. You can bring it if you're coming back from those places, but you can't import it.
Yeah. So it was for sale at the airport. But it's massively part of their economy. It's very restricted how it's sold. They don't sell the peel anymore. It's very, it's really restricted in Fiji and Vanuatu. And I know that MediHerb get their product from Vanuatu, and it's really important. I use all of the companies for my herbs. Some
pick and choose.
I pick and choose, and some will come from some companies, some will come from the other. I do a lot of podcasting with Christine from Herbal Extract Company. And but you do end up picking and choosing certain ones. Like I will only use the Herbal Extract Company's cinnamon, for example, because I find that one just hits the sweet spot. Whatever it is, that one, I really love. And then you'll go to other companies for other things. I'm loving the Withania from Optimal RX.
I think there's a really good message to go out there.
You've got to try them. The fresh plant tinctures coming from PPC are just divine. And I think, as you try all the different company ones, and you do start to it does mean that because I don't care what my shelves look like. I've got all these different labels, but it does mean that a number of, herbal dispensaries you go into, they're creating their own labels.
I know. I struggled with that. And a few years ago, I worked for a company that no longer exists. It was phytomedicine. And we tried so hard, and we could not, at that time we were competing against MediHerb mostly. Yeah. And we would go into a clinic and there'd be all a green wall, and they would not want an orange label in there. And it's a really bad attitude, actually. I totally believe you've got to go across the board, because each company makes amazing product, and some are just better with one than another. And also fresh plant tinctures, I think, are underrated. I used to be a bit against them because I thought they were so weak, but I'm actually changing my mind a bit. But I've never used them very much because they were never properly available in Australia. Yeah. And so that's another thing to consider.
Yeah, the PPC have got those now, and they're delicious. They taste really nice.
Yeah, the alcohol makes them taste worse. There's no doubt about that.
Oh yeah,
but they're stronger. So, but they're not necessarily stronger across the board. So it's really complex. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, you get those energetics and things. But no, I mean, I love my herbs, and got a huge number. And now, of course, that I've got my book. 2 books. Now that I've got 2 books to choose from, because you've got new ones in here, and you've got some in here that aren't in here. So having both, I'm just like.
Yeah, the new edition, it took me a whole year during lockdown to write that edition and bring that out. And it's I rewrote every single little monograph. I call them clinical monographs, and also added 40 new herbs, made sure that I had all the kiwi herbs there as well.
Yeah.
And some more traditional ones have gone out of favor a little bit. And it's also available online for free. So you can all have a look online.
Available online for free.
At the moment, that may change, but it's been up there.
I think that should probably change. It's a lot of hard work there, Michael.
And it's got a bit more information and some more references as well. So I'm still working on that. I haven't done anything for a while online, but have a look. It's just phytotherapy deskreference.com.
Okay, well, I will make sure that I put that in the show notes so that people can go and find it from the show notes. So I think that we will finish today's episode, and I will have you back again, Michael, to talk about hypericum and erythro on another occasion, if that's all right, because I think that all of the listeners will be heading straight to the show notes to go and look at your desk reference online. I think there's going to be a bit of a rush. So, so I will have you back again, if that's all right. Thank
Excellent.
You so much for joining us.
It was very enjoyable. I loved it. Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No, it's totally fine. I've sat here enraptured learning all about Kava. So it's going to be really cool when we get back together and do erythro and hypericum. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for joining me today. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast for the weekly episodes. If you'd like even more support and learning, then the Academy is for you. Here you'll find part 2 of the herbal discussions, more clinical learning, and case studies to support your clients in practice. Bye for now.